Mysterious and strange things found hidden in ice. How bizarre. From fish inception to woolly mammoth brains, here are the top 10 most mysterious things ever found frozen in ice. Number 10. A century-old battle frozen in time. In the 1990s, global warming started melting the glaciers around northern Italy's town of Peo. Artifacts from decades before started pouring out of the ice. Everything from love letters, long-forgotten diaries, and in more grim news, the bodies of soldiers who died fighting in the White War of World War I. It was a battle that had more casualties due to climate than actual fighting. A true rarity in war involving guns. More people died from the extreme cold and the avalanches than from the fighting. Thousands of men, many of them teenagers, died in the mountains due to frigid temperatures and natural hazards like falling snow, and due to the harsh conditions and ongoing conflict, their bodies were never recovered. As the melting continues, more bodies are being found. In 2004, a local mountain guide found 3 Habsburg soldiers on the mountainside. Historians have even uncovered an entire cabin preserved beneath the ice, complete with ammo boxes, steel helmets, and clothes left behind by the men who fought in the White War. Things like half-dismantled engines have been recovered, along with touching personal items like photographs, newspaper clippings, and pieces of trench art. Some of the bodies have even been identified, hopefully bringing a little closure to families who have waited and wondered for decades. Number 9. Mammoth brains. One of the weirder things these scientists have found in ice is the brains of a woolly mammoth. This mammoth, however, was not found in an ice patch like you might expect, but hidden underneath a large swath of permafrost off the Laptev Sea coast. This is one of the only preserved species of mammoth found with an intact brain to date. The specimen is around 39,000 years old, which makes the finding even more spectacular. The brain was not from an adult mammoth either. Even more rare, with scientists estimating the sample was taken from a mammoth around 6 to 9 years old. When the researchers trepanned the animal's skull to get to the brain, which means that they made a cut in the skull using tools that include an angle grinder, a dental drill, and chisels, they saw that there were still remains of soft tissue on its surface. They also found traces of nervous tissue, the main component of the nervous system responsible for reacting to stimuli and communicating impulses to different parts of the body. The mammoth specimen also had a well-preserved dura mater, Latin for tough mother, a dense membrane that protects the brain and spinal cord, as well as visible vessels and sinuses, the researchers wrote. The brain was stained brown due to oxidation, and it had shrunk, as its volume was 45% smaller than the volume of the cranial cavity, or the space inside the skull that houses the brain. The brain may have thawed and frozen again several times, as the carcass had been stored in different conditions. Talk about a lucky find. Number 8. Fishception. 2 fishermen and brothers were out on Indiana's Wawasee Lake and caught something nobody could have reasonably expected when they saw what looked like a pike in the middle of eating a bass. The pair had been frozen in place, and no one on the internet seemed to believe it when they posted a photo. To prove these internet haters wrong, they posted a video of themselves cutting the fish out of the frozen lake. They really had been frozen solid. The best explanation is that the pike choked on the bass, died, and was frozen. Talk about adding insult to injury. When some people left comments wondering if the photo was real, they set out on a quest to dig the fish out of the ice and videotape it as evidence. A week ago, my brother and I took a neat picture of these 2 frozen fish in the ice and posted it on Facebook. Anton Babich, one of the fishermen, explains, "The picture went viral and someone thought this was fake. We decided to go back to the channel where we saw it and cut it out of the ice to share this neat phenomenon with everybody." Anton thinks fishermen caught the bass, but it was too small to keep, so he released it. The bass died anyway and floated up under the ice when it was still thin. Then the pike saw an easy meal, tried to eat it, but choked and died. He thinks once both fish were dead, they both floated under the surface of the lake, which then froze into a thick layer of ice and trapped their bodies at the surface. Number 7. Woolly rhino. When you think of rhinos, you don't typically think of them with hair. However, when the small baby rhino named Sasha was discovered in Siberia, it had scientists scratching their heads. The preserved prehistoric creature was found by hunters traveling in Siberia in 2014. Originally, the hunters thought the carcass was that of a dead reindeer, but when approaching it, they could tell that it resembled a rhino. They decided to relocate the body of the rhino and stored it away until the season changed. Then they relocated the body to the Academy of Sciences. Sasha is one of the only woolly rhinos to be discovered and in this good of shape. While not all of Sasha was present due to what can be assumed was predators, the amount that was provided scientists with immense insight into the creature's history. After months of work, a taxidermist from the Yakutian Academy of Sciences took the small, slumped remains of Sasha and brought them back to life. A team of scientists from the Paleontological Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences and the Sakha Academy of Sciences in northeastern Russia has also been studying Sasha for years. The remains, gray when they were first found, were clean. Scientists were surprised to see the young rhino was originally a light strawberry blonde color. An analysis of Sasha's teeth revealed the animal was about 7 months old when it died. Number 6. Otzi the Iceman. A mummified hunter or warrior died a grisly death in the mountains before his body was frozen and preserved in the ice for thousands of years, waiting to be discovered by researchers. A mummy was discovered and named Otzi the Iceman. He was discovered in 1991 in the Utstal Alps. It's said that the man could be from as far back as 3000 BC. 2 tourists discovered the body and contacted authorities. After beginning excavation of the bodies, the researchers quickly realized they'd made a grave mistake. Apparently, he had whipworm, Trichoris tracheura, an intestinal parasite. During CT scans, it was observed that 3 or 4 of his right ribs had been cracked when he had been laying face down after death or where the ice had crushed his body. 13 years following the removal of the body, 7 of the people who helped unearth him passed away. It is said that Otzi the Iceman was killed violently after being speared in the head with an arrow, and to add insult to injury, he was bashed in the head several times with a rock. Many theories have suggested that the Iceman wanted to avenge himself by cursing those who removed him from his icy grave. Number 5. Ancestral dog in Siberia. Even though Siberia is bone-chillingly cold, it is a hotbed for discovering long-lost species of ancient animals or ones that were assumed extinct and unrecoverable. A great example was a dog of previously unknown origin that dates back an estimated 18,000 years. Dogor, an 18,000-year-old pup unearthed in Siberian permafrost whose name means friend in the Yakut language, is a puzzle to researchers because it's debatable whether the animal is a wolf or a domesticated dog. Locals found the remains in the summer of 2018 in a frozen lump of ground near the Indigirka River. This, according to the Northeastern Federal University in Yakutsk. Parts of the animal are incredibly well preserved, including its head, nose, whiskers, eyelashes, and mouth, revealing that it still had its milk teeth when it died very young in the frozen tundra. Researchers suggest the animal was just 2 months old when it passed, though they do not know the cause of death. The research done on this species shows early examples of domesticating wolves and slowly evolving them into the cute house pets we know today. Number 4. Ice volcanoes. The largest cluster of volcanoes in the world is buried under ice. Over a mile below the surface of the vast ice sheet that covers West Antarctica, 91 volcanoes sit dormant, with the tallest standing over 2.5 miles tall. Geologists such as Dr. Robert Bingham say this huge region is likely to dwarf that of East Africa's volcanic ridge, currently rated the densest concentration of volcanoes in the world. If they erupt, researchers say the energy created by the eruptions could further disturb Antarctica's ice sheets, meaning more ice melts and flows into the surrounding sea. A study involved analyzing measurements made by previous surveys, which involved the use of ice-penetrating radar carried by either planes or land vehicles to survey the strips of West Antarctic ice. The results were then compared with satellite and database records and geological information from other aerial surveys. Essentially, we were looking for evidence of volcanic cones sticking up into the ice, Bingham said. After the team had collected the results, it reported a staggering 91 previously unknown volcanoes, adding to the 47 others that had been discovered over the previous century of exploring the region. Number 3. Mount Everest climbers. Rough estimates say that there are nearly 300 dead bodies scattered along the ascents of Mount Everest. But the most widely known death is green boots, known as a landmark to climbers going up to the summit. The climber must be passed to get to the top. Green Boots was one of the 8 people killed on the mountain during a blizzard in 1996. The corpse, which received its name because of the neon green hiking boots it wears, lies curled up in a limestone cave on Mount Everest's northeast ridge route. Everyone who passes through is forced to step over his legs in a forceful reminder that the path is still treacherous despite their proximity to the summit. Green Boots is believed to be Sawang Paljor, a member of a 4-man climbing team from India who made their attempt at reaching the summit in May of 1996. Whether it is Paljor or one of his teammates is still up for debate. 28-year-old Paljor was an officer with the Indo-Tibetan Border Police who grew up in the village of Sakti, which lies at the foot of the Himalayas. He was thrilled when he was selected to be part of the exclusive team that hoped to be the first Indians to reach the top of Everest from the north side. Harbhajan Singh, the expedition's sole survivor, recalled how he was forced to fall back due to the steadily worsening weather. Although he tried to signal to the others to return to the relative safety of the camp, they pushed on without him, consumed by summit fever. Number 2. Mountainside Jewels. In 1966, an Air India flight flew too low on its descent and crashed into the peak of Mont Blanc, leaving debris scattered across the mountainside. Among the burning wreckage that was scattered across the glacier, a small case packed full of 100 precious emeralds, sapphires, and rubies was flung through the air to be swallowed by the ice for years, long forgotten. The box, which 2 families are claiming had their name embossed into the side, sank into the glacier, only reappearing 47 years later clutched in the hands of a local climber as he strolled into the local police station clutching the jewels. The find was made on the Bossons Glacier, which had often spewed to the surface all sorts of remnants from the Air India crashes. These have included newspapers from the flights, letters, shoes, cables, and fragments of the planes, or even human remains. While the story is incredible, some debate the origin of the gems since there have been multiple high-profile accidents in the area. The gems may be from the 1950 crash of Air India Flight 245, the Malabar Princess. The plane smashed into nearby Mont Blanc during a storm, killing all 48 aboard. When it crashed, the plane was preparing to make a stop in Geneva, Switzerland, as it flew between Bombay, now Mumbai, and London. French authorities say it's also possible the gems could have been aboard an Air India Boeing 707, the Kanchenjunga, that crashed in nearly the same spot 16 years later. A diplomatic bag from that flight was recovered last year. Under French law, the jewelry could be handed over to the mountaineer if these are not identified. Honorable mention number 1. Glacier mice. No, they're not rodents. But glacier mice are actually balls of moss, each about the size of a tennis ball, and typically shaped into slightly squashed spheres that amass around pebbles on the surfaces of some glaciers. Glaciers are commonly considered to be cold and barren places that are hostile to life. Plants cannot grow directly on these slow-flowing bodies of ice, but life can be found here nonetheless, and perhaps none of it is stranger than the glacier mice. Where you find one glacier mouse, you tend to find a whole group of them. If you're struggling to imagine one, they look a bit like Tribbles from the famous Star Trek episode, or the rolling trolls from Frozen. The glacier mice rotate often, at least once every few days. It is this rotation that enables the glacier mice to grow moss around the whole of their outer surfaces. Honorable mention number 2. Islands emerging from the ice. Researchers studying the Steenstrup and Keir glaciers in northwest Greenland noted the emergence of several new islands from the ice between 1999 and 2014. In the last 60 years, the Steenstrup Glacier has retreated more than 6 miles, uncovering previously undiscovered islands dotted around the coast, which means that maps of the immediate area have to be redrawn in order to remain accurate. Over time, glaciers naturally retreat and advance in a cyclical fashion, but such accelerated worldwide melting since the 1980s shows humans that global warming is affecting the Earth more than we realize, and it's because of human causes. More land masses that have lain hidden in the ice for thousands of years could be exposed as the years roll by. Number 1. Ancient plant life perfectly preserved. From about 1550 to 1850, a global cold snap called the Little Ice Age supersized glaciers throughout the Arctic. On Canada's Ellesmere Island, Teardrop Glacier extended its frozen tongue across the landscape and swallowed a small tuft of moss. Since 1850, the plant lay frozen under a 100-foot thick slab of ice as humans discovered antibiotics, visited the moon, and burned 2 trillion tons of fossil fuels. Centuries later, an evolutionary biologist discovered the frozen root of Aulicomnium turgidum, the world's oldest living plant species, after she nursed it back to life in a lab in Edmonton. Maybe the plant should have its name changed to the root of immortality. That's all we have for you today, everybody, and thank you all for watching. Let us know in the comments down below what you think the most mysterious frozen find was, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell so that you don't miss out on all of our latest content.